Hi everyone. Today's video is going to be focused on annual recertifications. There's a couple things I want to bring up before we get started. Number one, be sure you print out the PDFs emailed to you. The recertification timeline is a one-page document sent by compliance that allows you to follow through all of the steps from 6 months before your effective date all the way through to your recertification interview process. The second document is your annual recertification manual. You should have both of these and both of them printed, especially when reviewing this video. There is a sample of that. For the steps today, we're only going to be going through the annual recertification steps via OneSite. I'm going to be using the training site to do this. So a couple of the settings on here will be a bit different. The date is set to 2015 and some of the notices won't be able to be brought up and generated. So keep that in mind that this is just for training purposes. Lastly, as you all know, the manual preparation steps occur before the timeline starts. So again, be sure to review your recertification timeline, the manual preparation steps on page 1 of the manual, and talk to the compliance team if you have any questions or concerns. You also will obviously want to discuss this with your regional manager. So to get started, we're going to go through the steps of the annual recertification manual. The first step is to sign into OneSite. Once you're logged into OneSite, we're going to review the certification date. Now keep in mind you know your recertification date and this should be set appropriately for all of your residents, but it's always good to double check before we get started on our ARs. We're going to go do this by going to the Reports tab. Under Reports, you're going to go to Compliance, and under Compliance, you're going to go to the next annual recertification. As you can see, you're going to click on Generate, and here you'll be able to set the different sections. I'm running the report now, and the parameters will be here. Subproperty, I want all. Programs, I'm going to choose the proper Section 8 program and number, and the rest is going to stay the same. I want to check all recertifications. I want to sort by the building or unit, and I'm going to sort ascending and not include market renters. Now I can click on Generate. Remember, you don't want to close out of this box, so I'm going to leave the box open and wait for my report to display. Sometimes it can take a couple minutes. Now here is my report, and as I can see, the date is set to 11/1/2015. I want to be sure that it says 11/1/2015 for all of my reports. And as you can see, that's what it should be. If for some reason your report does not say the same date and the correct AR date, here's an example, you know that something's going on. And in that case, you're going to want to contact your regional manager and compliance. But again, as I mentioned in the beginning, I am on a testing site. So this is just for testing purposes. Once you've confirmed the annual recertification date is correct for everyone, you can now start on the first step of the annual recertification process, which is setting up the AR notice. To set up the AR notice, we're going to go to the administration link in the top right-hand corner. Under Affordable, you're going to click on Processing. The first step is to click the first link, Annual Recertification Notices Setup. There's a couple things you're going to want to be sure is correct. Firstly, you want to check the box that says Auto-Generate Notices. You'll want to be sure the box here is checked that says Always Include Certification Questionnaire with First Reminder. So again, you'll want to make sure these first two boxes are checked off. The next step is you're going to go to the interview information. You're going to want to be sure the start date is 1 and the end date is 1. Once these both say 1, I'm going to check the contact name. And I'm going to want to be sure the contact name is set up. So in this case, it says Edith Sosa. So if Edith is the contact, I will leave it as is. If she's not the contact, I can update this. The next step is to set up our notices. As you can see here, they've already been set up because this is a testing site. But for testing purposes, we're going to go through the process. You're going to want to find the program that you're setting up, so in this case, Section 8 and the number, and click on Edit. Once I click on Edit, I'm going to want to set up the notice for 120-day, 90-day, and 60-day. I'm only doing the 120-day, but I'm going to set up the notices for all 3. If you click on the drop-down, you'll see all these different notices. And what you're going to look for is Section 8, Annual Recertification 120-Day Notice. The same for the section here. You want it to say Section 8, Annual Recertification 90-Day Notice. And for 60, Section 8, Annual Recertification 60-Day Notice. Now make sure you review this before you click Save. As you can see, 120, 120, 90, 90, 60, 120. So by accident, if you click on the wrong arrow, you could end up making an error that can cost you a lot of time. So I'm going to update that and make sure that these are all correct. 120, Section 8 Annual Recertification 120, 90, 90, 60, and 60. I can now click on Save. That step is complete. I can see that it's been updated and is complete, and I'm going to click on Save. The next step is to generate the recertification reminder notices. We're going to use this second link here to do this. So I'm going to click on Annual Recertification Notices. Once I click on this link, you're going to want to look at the range category in the right corner. And we're going to focus on 0 to 145 days. So the system allows you, for the 120-day notice to be generated within the 145-day period of the AR effective date. So all that's saying is you'll want to click the range of 0 to 145 days. What will happen is a new window will list all the tenants who are scheduled to receive that 120-day notice for their upcoming AR. And again, for this example, we won't have anyone because it's not the right timeline. But let's go through the steps. For your units, you'll click on Generate Notices, and a new pop-up will show up, and you'll be able to select all the units that apply. So you'll look through all the units that are generated here, and you'll be able to click all of them with this little check button, or you'll be able to choose the different notices that will need to be applied. More than likely, you'll select all, enter the notice date, and the 1 and the 1 will stay the same for interview period. So again, we are now on page 5 of your annual recertification manual. So as I mentioned, you're going to see that you can check all the boxes by clicking up here for all of the different units. You'll want to double check the notice date and the start date and end date, 1 and 1, and click on Generate. Once you do this, the reports will stay in progress and a pop-up window will show up. And this usually takes a couple of minutes, so try to be patient. When the report is ready, it will say Print, as you can see below. You're going to select Print and wait for the notices to be generated. So as you can see here, we have a little screenshot. Once the process is ready, it'll say Print, and you'll be able to click Print. At this point, you'll want to make sure you just set up the printing properly on your printer so that all the notices can be generated appropriately. If, for example, you needed to generate an AR reminder notice individually, Perhaps one of them got stuck in the printer, or one of them went missing. Whatever it might be, you can always generate an AR reminder notice singly. You can always generate individually an AR reminder notice. So to do this, you're going to go into OneSite. You're going to go into your Residents tab, and you're going to look for the resident you are wanting to generate the notice for. So for this example, let's pretend it's Young Che. I'm going to click on Young Che and open up their account, and I'm looking for the Letters and Notices tab. So Letters and Notices. I'm going to go to Letters and Notices and select the Annual tab. So again, go into Letters and Notices. So that is an easy way for you to be able to see the statuses changed and updated. So for this example, if I wanted to view a letter that was already printed or reprint a letter, I'm going to click on View. And remember, when you see Open, Save, Save As, more than likely you're going to have to click on Save on a lot of the computers at GK. When I click on Save, then I'll be able to open the document. And now it'll open it up in Word. So there's 2 sections on each notice that you're going to have to fill out before handing them out. And as you can see, the first is your appointment. You're going to need your date and time for each appointment set up. And the second is the rent amount, the HUD approved market rent amount that will happen if they do not respond before the recertification date. So I'm going to show you where to find both of those and how to move to the next steps. We have completed the first step of just generating the letters and notices. The next step is to set up the interview times and fill out each of the notices. To do this, you're going to want to go to your Today page. On your Today page, you should have a box that says Appointments. If you don't, go to Customize. Click on Customize, and you'll be able to add anything in that's not currently here just by grabbing it, clicking on it, and dragging it to the page, and then saving it. But we already have appointments, so we're not going to do that. In the Appointments section, you can see the current appointments for today's date. So for each appointment to create an appointment, click on New. The first thing I'm going to do is schedule an appointment for a current resident. So I'm going to click on Find. I want to look at just current residents, and perhaps I know the unit number I want to start with. Click on Find, and all of this is going to pop up. I'm going to find the first individual that I want to set up an appointment for, and I'm going to click Select. I've selected them. The appointment is set for Adela Montoya. I'm assigning it, and for this sake, I'm going to pretend it's me training. I'm going to set the priority, perhaps to medium, and I'm going to set up the appointment time. So I'm going to make sure this box is checked under appointment. I'm going to set up the date. So let's set it for 6/3, and I'm going to set it for 10 a.m. because I get started at 9 a.m. and I want to make sure I catch up on my work before I have my first appointment. And I'm going to set it for 45 minutes. If it's your first time, maybe 45 minutes to 1 hour. And if you have questions about this, talk to your regional manager. So, just to bring this up once more, I'm actually going to change the date on this. Because if I bring up the calendar, I can start my research. For example, if I was to start my research in June, I could start them June 1st, but that first week, I've got rents and payments and checks to process. So you know what, that's probably not the best time for me to start some of my timeline appointments. So I'm going to set my first appointment for the 7th. So that way when I get in on the 6th, I can catch up on work, and on the 7th, I can start some of my appointments. Scheduled for 10 a.m. for 45 minutes. Perhaps I want to add in a note about Adela or about what I'm doing. And then I'm going to click on Save. Once I click on Save, that appointment is saved. If I want to double check and make sure it's there, go to the calendar, click See It. I would click on June 7th. And since it's under All Appointments, I'll be able to pull up that action. So as you can see, we're scheduled June 7th, 10 a.m. for 45 minutes with Adela, who it's assigned to, and you can even edit, complete, or cancel the appointment time. Now that I've scheduled Adela Montoya's appointment, I want to add this information to her notice. So what I would do is open up the notice, so what I would do is look at my notice, add June 7th, 2016 at 10 a.m. to the notice. And I want to make sure I put in the rent amount as well. If you don't know the rent amount for your 1-bedroom, your 2-bedroom, or your 3-bedroom for contract rent, I can show you an easy way to figure it out. What you'll want to do is you'll need to go to the residence, whoops, what you'll want to do is you'll need to go to the Residence tab. You'll want to find the resident you're looking for. And I know we were looking for Montoya. So go by name and find Montoya. And we're going to view her account. Under her account, we're going to go to Certifications and wait for it to pull up. Sometimes this can take a few moments. And then we'll want to actually pull the certification up, and you'll be able to see the exact amount for contract rent on the 5/9. So sometimes it takes a moment. And again, you'll be able to see the certification summary. You'll be able to see the 5/9, which again will say contract rent $1,501. If you're on the certification summary, you can also see it says contract rent $1,501. So we know that for her, it's going to be $1,501 if she doesn't make it by the annual recertification deadline. You've now filled out your first notice, and you can follow the same process for all of your notices. The last step will be conducting the interview. Once I have set up all my AR notices, I've filled out all my AR notices and interview times and contract rents, and have delivered all of the notices, I'm actually going to have interviews to conduct. So for this example, my first interview was set for Tuesday, June 7th at 10 a.m. And I'm going to prepare. Before conducting the interview, you want to go to the residence file and review it for completion, and just make sure that everything is done. You have the residents there, and you have all their information, and you want to make sure it's going to be ready to be completed. So again, for Adela Montoya, we're going to go to her file and click on View. And then, once you've found the file, you're going to go to Actions, and under Actions, click on Interview. And here, you're going to see Interview. Now, once I click on the interview link, this is going to pop up. And this is going to basically prompt the interview to start. So as you can see, Adela Montoya is the head of the household, but there's also another adult family member and a dependent in the home as well. And as we can see, more than likely, these are her kids. If you needed to add another household member, you could do that here by clicking on New. Or if you needed to edit one of the household members, you could click on Edit. If you are adding a household member, be sure that the new member has been screened and approved by your manager. If for any reason they have not been screened or approved, they cannot move in and they cannot be added on this annual recertification. We are actually on page 10 of the manual currently, so if you have any additional questions about the details or the different relationships and setup, this is the page you'll want to see to view that. So just for example's sake, I want to show you one of these. Again, you'll see the relationship status is dependent. You'll put in their name. You'll check the box if they're a lease signer, co-signer, occupant, employee, and or guarantor. You'll put in the effective date, which will be the AR date, whatever the AR effective date is, and you'll click on Save. If you see this box pop up that says Household, do you anticipate adding any children to the household within the next year? You can always skip this and put No. You can always add this in the interim and you won't have to worry about this right now. So once this is all complete, I can go to the next section by clicking Next. And this is where I'll be able to put in the member information. If I needed to put in the member info, the income, the assets, the expenses, all of these steps are going to be handled here. If it's already here, you just want to double check that it's all correct. And keep in mind, you're following the steps of exactly what Adela Montoya or whoever you're working with filled out on their paperwork. Make sure that all this information is correct. And when you get down here, you'll want to skip this section that talks about the rental and home ownership info. So again, once you get to this question, you'll skip this last question and click on Next. In the Demographics tab, we're in the next section. You'll want to fill out anything in red. So make sure you fill out the gender, any other information that's required, and again, just put in exactly what they filled out on their paperwork. Once this is complete, again, you'll click on Next and go to the next section and do the same for the verification letters. So again, for verification letters tab, this is the final tab of the membership information section. And this is kind of where you can create and print any of the verification that need to be sent to the third parties. So that's to verify income, assets, expenses. If I click on New, you'll be able to see that you'll be able to create the letter. Now for this example, it'll say the member name, Adela Montoya. It'll have the source of income that we need to create. So if she had perhaps one of these, we could click on it. We could decide if it's a letter of third-party verification. We could decide who the recipient was, so perhaps it's the 99 Only stores. We could edit the recipient if the information isn't updated. And we can even have notes added. That's how you can create any of the verification letters. If I didn't need any verification letters, I would click on Next. Now I'm on the next section of income. So under the Employment tab, are you employed? If I click on Yes, notice a new pop-up window will show up because I'll need to add in all of that additional information that Adela has provided me with. If not, I'll click on No. Notice this Create Letter button. At any point in time during this process, you can create a letter and have the letter created and visit it later to print it. Something else I want to keep in mind is when you're looking at employment, if they are employed, notice the start date. Now for the start date, what date would you want to use? you're going to want to use the AR effective date that the income will be applied to. Remember, this is for annual research, so the day you're entering it will not be the start date. The start date will be the first date that the entry is going in. So if my annual recertification date is November 1st, 2016, I'm going to put in 11/1/2016. And then I'm going to fill out the source of income, the type of income, and any additional information I need. I'll click on Save and be done. We are now on page 14 of the manual. And again, it goes into all the details of how to set this up if you have any questions. So if you run into issues with perhaps income, this is where you'll want to go, page 14. The next tab we're going to is going to be Assistance. So if I click on Next, it'll take me to the Assistance tab. Again, you're answering the questions just as they did on their paperwork, and then it'll take me to the next tab, Other Information. As you can see here, we have had a couple yeses on this exam. As you can see here, we had a couple yeses answered. Are you receiving disability benefits? Notice that there's 2 disability benefits already set up. If there is just a change to one of these disabilities, for example, a future and a past, what you'll want to do is you do not want to create a new one, because a new one is creating a whole new disability. You'll want to actually go to the disability, click on More, and either make it inactive, delete it, or view the change details. At this point, you'll be able to edit. So notice here, if I click on Edit, I can actually edit this disability here that she's receiving and put the start date for the annual recertification date. The reason you'll want to do this is because if you create a new one, you're going to have more than one disability benefit that you need to verify. And if you're not verifying it, it won't be correct. So be sure you follow the steps accordingly. Once this section is complete, I'll click on Next. And again, we'll be guided to the Verification Letters tab. Now at this point, I can print any of the verification letters I need to. Again, for this example, this has already been done, but if I needed to, it would say generating, and I would be able to verify or print out or check the status of any of the verification letters. At this point, you can print the verification letters, or you can wait till the end to have them all printed at once. Once this is complete, I'm going to go to the Next. And now I'm on Assets. Again, I'm going to follow the same exact step on Assets. So for this example, it says, do you have any checking, savings, or money market accounts? I'm going to look, and it says yes. I'm going to click on Yes. And again, you'll want to follow the same process here. If it's a new account, create it. But if you just have to change the current account, make sure you click on this account and change it here. Because again, you'll need to verify it. And if you need to verify it, you don't want to have duplicates. Once that is complete, I'll go to each section. Notice I can't click up here to go to each section. I need to fill them out and then click on Next at the bottom. Again, each section, the last tab, will always be verification letters. So each tab, Income, Assets, and Expenses, will have its own Verification Letters tab, which means you can view all of their verification letters, you can print them, you can edit them, and you can create them. Again, if you want to print them in each section, you can. If you do not, you can always print them at the end when it says Verification Letters. So at this point, I'm going to click Next. And I'm going to fill out the last section, which is Expenses. Again, you'll go through each tab, you'll fill out the answer, and notice every time I click Yes, a new pop-up window shows up to fill out the information. So it's telling you exactly what you need to do. Click Next, and I'm going to go through each tab. As I mentioned, every tab, every section has a Verification Letters tab, If there's any to print, or if you need to create one, you can do that. And you can always do it at the end. I'm going to follow the same steps for each member in the family. So for time's sake, I'm not going to go through all of this because I think you guys have heard my voice enough. So I'm going to quickly kind of just go through each step and make it through the end for all of these sections. Again, at any point, if you have to go back, you can to edit anything that's changed. And if you run into anything, you can always edit and add to it. And my goal is to finish each household member and get to the next step, which is the verification letters. If you're wondering what page of the manual I'm on at this point, I'm going to be on page 18. So, at this point, I'll see all the verification letters. If I needed to print them all, I could. If I needed to create one, I could. Or if I needed to edit anything, I could. For example, if I click on More, I can view the letter, enter the receive date, update any information, or add notes. Again, I'm on a training site, so this has already been created, but in your case, you're going to basically be printing all your notices. And if you didn't know if you printed it out or not, it would tell you in the status section. Once I have all my notices, I'll click on Next. Again, the goal here is to view all your verification letters. This is an example in a training site, so again, these have already been completed, but if in your case, under status, you'll be able to say if you've already printed it or if it still needs to be printed. Once that's complete and you have all your verification letters, you'll click on Next, and you'll see a summary of everything. Once this summary is complete and accurate, I'm going to click on Finish. At this point, the interview is complete. You have everything printed out that you need, and what you'll want to do is complete the scheduled interview. So this is a two-step process. I'm going to get out of Adela Montoya's account. I'm going to tell Adela and her family members thank you so much, and I'm going to go to my Today page. I'm going to look at that appointment that was set up. So we set it up, I believe, for June 7th. And again, I'm going to go to All Appointments, and there she is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to complete it, because now the interview is complete. When I click on Complete, a new window is going to pop open, and I'm going to fill it out. So I'm going to set up the date. So again, in this example, it would have been June 7th, 2016. I'm going to select up the activity, and the activity is going to be Visit. I'm going to click on Results, and in this case, it's active and it needs more time to complete the documents. Now, it could be any of these reasons, but for this example, we just need some verification letters to be completed. I can click on the time. I can click on Leasing Consultant for the name. Again, leasing consultant, ignore. Basically, just you want to put in your name here. So again, for this example, I'm going to put training. And the next step is to click Save. If I wanted to add in notes or contact information, I can, but I'm going to just click on Save. And now that item will be removed off my appointments list. So this is a great way to stay organized because you know once everything has been completed. Keep in mind that after you complete this, you're not done. As I mentioned, there's 2 steps to completing the scheduled interview. That's just the first step. You need to complete the second step as well. The first step is for your own organization. The second step is for the system. You'll go to the administration link at the top right corner. You're going to locate the affordable section and click on processing. and you're going to select Annual Recertification Notices. This is where you'll be able to mark as interviewed. So I would look for the resident that I had interviewed. Again, I'm on a training site, so it's not going to be seen here. But let's just say, for example, it was in here. And I could click on that resident and mark them as interviewed. So if I'm in the manual, just so I can show you guys this example, we're on page 19. So I'm going to go to page 19. And you can follow along with me. And on page 19, you'll see these exact steps that I'm mentioning. So it says go to the administration link, click on processing, click on annual recertification notice, find the resident you're looking for, and mark as interviewed. So you'll select the 120-day notice, you'll select the interview date, you'll find the resident you're looking for, and you'll check the box, and then you'll mark them as interviewed. You'll know it's updated because the interview date will appear at the end of the resident's name. So you'll see the resident, you'll see the recertification date, you'll see when you sent the 120-day notice, and you'll be able to see the interview date as well. Why are you doing this? You're probably thinking, well, why do I have to do both steps? It's vital that you do both steps because the calendar will be your system of checking and balancing. And this part of the process in administration is key because what will happen is once the interview is complete and you go to run your notices, like your 60 or your 90-day notice, they will not generate a notice for the individuals who have already come in for an interview. Obviously, you definitely don't want to send a recertification notice to someone who's already attended the interview. So keep that in mind, that the process is 2 steps. You need to go to the administration link, go to the annual recertification notices and update them here. And you need to go to the Today page and update the appointment in your calendar. We're not done yet. I know you're probably tired, but at this point we're going to talk about the verification letters. I just want to side note that what we're talking about is all of the steps of the AR certifications and recertifications. Keep in mind you're not doing all of this in one day, but if you plan ahead and understand and organize yourself with each of the steps, it'll become a lot easier to follow. So let's go over the third-party verification letters. Once all of these steps have been completed and the interview process has been done to all the adult household members, you can now send the third-party verification letters. So you're going to print these out and either mail them or fax them. On your Today page, you should have the verification letters. And again, if you don't, go to the Customize and drag and drop the verification letters. So for this example, I'm going to move my verification letters up here because it's kind of important to me right now. And again, you can change this at any time. So now what you'll see is my verification letters will show up here. And it's retrieving the letters as we speak, so it's going to take a minute or 2 to retrieve the letters. So as you can see, there are going to be several items on here that I can see. I can see error, I can see needed and recommended, generating, ready to print, printed, mailed, received. This is where you'll go to print any of the verification letters. So as you can see, these have already been printed, and these are ready to print. Any of these numbers with an underline at the bottom, you can click on. So if I click on the ready to print, it's going to pull up all the letters that are ready to print. And what I can do is locate what I'm looking for. So let's say I just had an interview with Helen and I needed to print her verification letters. I could click on print, check the box, click on print, And notice she comes off the screen and all of her verification letters show up. I would now review these letters and print them out. And once that's done and completed, I can actually find her letter by going to printed. Notice it shows up as printed now because I printed them out. And after I mail or fax them, I will check off the button, check off the box, and click on mailed or faxed. I'll click on the date. So let's say I sent it out today. I'll put today's date, click on save, and notice once I do that, she will actually be removed from that section as well. So what I can do is if I want to make sure she's still there, I go to the mailed section and she'll end up showing up on the mailed section. If I close out of this box, I can also see that by going to each of these sections. So if I want to see all of them have been received versus mailed, click on the mailed box and it's going to pull them all up. Again, keep in mind if it says no items, just wait a couple of minutes. This sometimes can take some time. We are now on page 21 of the manual. So keep in mind if you have questions or need to review this, you can always revert back to this information. Note that only one attempt needs to be made by mailing or faxing to receive a third-party verification letter for anything involving income, assets, or qualifying expenses. So again, this is where you'll go for all of your letters. Again, as we can see with Helen, we went through the whole process and we know that it's mailed. We're just waiting for the verification. So let's pretend that Helen's mailed letter came back to us with the verification. So in the mailed section, if we got a letter back, we'll want to find that letter. And what we'll want to do is say that we received it. We'll want to enter the date that we received it. So let's pretend we received it on the 1st of June, and we'll click on save. What will happen is this letter will then be removed from this page because it's now been received. Once we've received the letter, we'll want to go to the received section. And as you can see, the letter will show up in received. Now we can verify the letter. So we'll click on verify, and a new pop-up window will show up, which will allow us to identify the letter and all of the information. We are now on page 22 of the manual, and it discusses verifying the letters. So again, we want to identify the letter, we want to identify the information. The effective date needs to be the recertification effective date. We'll want to make sure the income, the type of income is correct. You want to review any kind of additional account numbers that are in there, as well as if it's involving income, all of the income. And click on save. Now, you'll notice when I click on save, this box pops up saying verification letter, enter date. What you'll want to do is enter the date the information was verified in the system. So notice that this is not the AR date. You want to put in the effective date, and the date has to be before the AR effective date. So I would put today's date and click on save. Once this is done, you'll notice that it's going to show up in the verified box. So if I go to verified, and sometimes this takes a minute or two to set up, and if I go to the verified box, it'll end up popping up in verified. And as you can see, Helen Konchik, it's been verified. If I wanted to view it or archive the letter or add any notes, I can do that now as well. And again, if I close this box, I can always view this by looking at the verification letter and going to the right section. Once the interview has been processed and is completed by all the adult household members, you can now process the trial annual certification in OneSite. So you're going to go to the Residence tab. You're going to find the resident that you're looking for. And I know we've kind of played around with a lot of examples here. So let's just find a resident as the example. Let's stick with Helen. You're going to view the Residence tab file. And what I'm looking for is the Certify link. If I click on Certify, I'm going to get a pop-up, and at this point I can create and finish the certification. So under the certifications, and this again is going to be for annual and interim certifications. So under certifications, I'm going to click on annual recertification, and I'm going to make sure the effective date is correct, and I'm going to click on next. And at this point you're going to see three different sections: general information, household review, and program and rent. So you want to make sure that the general information is correct. Again, it's stopping me because we're on the test site, so we're going to just try to put this in here, and again it's just for testing. Sorry guys, this is just for testing. Now I can go to the household review and review all the information here. Again, you'll be able to see any of the information, and you want to be sure there's check boxes here. This is a test, so these have X's. If you see any X's, you need to have them be checked. And what the check means is that it's been verified and it is correct. So if you see an X here, it means that the verification letter either hasn't been marked as verified or hasn't been verified yet. And that's when you'll want to go back and make sure you verify those letters. You'll want to do the same for the next section. You want to review all the information and make sure it's accurate. Again, you can see here that something needs to be done. And at this point, I can finish and view forms. So finishing will close the window. Finish and view forms will pull up forms. So what we're going to do is just click finish. And again, in this example, you'll see the household does not qualify for the selected contract. Please ensure all violations have been addressed or select a different contract. So keep in mind that it will stop you if you have anything missing. So you can't miss anything. But again, this is an example, so we're going to just close out of it because we haven't verified everything. And once everything is closed and updated and you've certified and verified everything, under the Today page, you'll be able to see the certifications. So again, if you're searching for it and you can't find it, you'll be able to find it here. You can see the recertifications and the certifications. And again, you'll see the trial, you'll see what's approved, and you'll see anything final unreported. And if I click on any of these, it'll bring a pop-up window and show me everything that's going on. And that's the simplest way to kind of stay up to track. So keep in mind your Today page really will help you to stay organized and follow the process. And again, as you can see here, if I was in trial mode, I can see what's going on in trial. I can also see what's approved. And I can also see what's final. So if I click on approved, at this point, I can click on more, and under more, click on complete. Once it's been approved, and I click on more and click on complete, the last step is to enter the dates the resident signed the 5/9. So all you want to do is basically, at the bottom, review all the information and enter the date. Keep in mind the date must be on or before the AR effective date. So you need to complete this last step before the final AR effective date. So I encourage you to finalize all of these as you receive the information. As you have the completed interview, make sure you complete the interview in the 2 sections. As you receive the verification letters, make sure you update them in the sections. And as everything is updated, make sure you finalize the last steps. Stay as organized as possible. If you run into any issues with any of these steps, or if, for example, the tenant isn't able to sign or misses something, please contact your compliance specialist. Contact compliance, contact training. We are here to help, and we want to make sure you stay up to date. If you are running behind or if something doesn't feel up to date, just contact us. We really are here to help, and it's so much simpler to help you ahead of time than a couple weeks before the final deadline. Thank you so much for your time today in learning about annual recertifications, and we look forward to finalizing everyone's annual recertification together. If you need additional assistance, please contact training or compliance, and you can email us by .compliance or .training. Have a wonderful day.